I'm here with Coach Matthew Driscoll, the men's basketball coach for UNF basketball. Sir, how are you doing today?
Doing well, really well. It's obviously it's a busy week for a lot of different reasons, especially when you're coming off 3 games in 5 days, going into finals, and then getting ready for 3 games in 5 days on the way back out. But it's just the nature of the beast. I think a lot of people don't really understand that almost every single major holiday is covered within the basketball season. If you really think about, you start with Halloween, then you hit Thanksgiving, then you hit Christmas, then you hit New Year's. Of course, you got to have Valentine's Day in there, and then on the back end of that, you got Easter. So it's just the nature of the beast when you're in men's basketball.
Absolutely, and you talk about some of the games that are important down the stretch in this type of year. Back-to-back wins, FAMU, Charleston Southern University. Just seeing how you guys were talking to you guys about how they need to be prepared for these games and how finals can be. What helped this team so much get that momentum to get those 2 wins?
Well, I think we're 3 out of our last 4 we've won against schools like us that come from a league like ours. So as you start moving forward, you continually show the guys what we look like against people like us. Because if you continually show them what they look like against maybe some teams that are a little bit more superior in money, a little bit more superior in notoriety, Power 5, those kind of leagues, it kind of weighs on them a little bit, and coaches as well too, because we're trying to win every game. And it's great when you beat Purdue, when we beat Illinois. Those were great wins for our program and for our university. But the reality is, January 5th, we start Atlantic Sun play. And when your A-Sun starts and we start getting into that play, we want to make sure our mindset's of that. So as we go into Wright State, as we go into Cancun, these last 2 games, we talk about these are league games. These is what it's going to be like in a league. And then like the FAMU Charleston Southern, home on Thursday night, quick turnaround Friday, get on the bus, play Saturday afternoon. Well, we have that same scenario coming up. We'll be at FIU. We have to drive home after the game, which is about a 6-hour bus ride, and then play Charleston Southern the next day, a quick turnaround again, 2 games in 3 days. But it happens again in the league. We go to Liberty, fly home on Sunday, and play NJIT on Monday at home on Martin Luther King Day. So we really try to tie those things in and correlate what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're playing the games the way we're playing them. We'll give us another day in between. We'll understand something. When we get to A-Sun play, this is what's going to transpire. So let's make sure that we understand what that's like. We've experienced that because the Atlantic Sun is very competitive, as you can see by the teams and how they've played already in the non-conference. So let's have a little bit of an edge and an understanding going into it.
And talking a little bit more about that trip to Cancun, how does those games, losing in that tournament there, how does that team give you, was that a teachable moment for your players to down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't believe in moral victories, and I don't believe in learning from losing. I'm just not that kind of person, and I don't think it's good for, in my opinion, it's not good for competitive athletics. When you go down to play in a tournament like that, and it's a 2-day turn, it's a back-to-back play, it's a very, very quick turnaround. You're playing at 3 o'clock, game's over at 5. Next thing you know, you're tipping it back off at 3 the next day. You're coming back that night at 9 o'clock for video and walkthrough. And you're playing against 2 very, very, very different teams. So, it makes it interesting as far as what you do in a preparation standpoint and going into it. Each assistant has different teams. But as a player, you're really looking at personnel. You're really looking at similarities. You're really looking at those kind of things. And as the head coach, you're only doing 1 game at a time. That's what I do. I can't go ahead. I can't start watching somebody else play. I'm just worried about who we're playing. So when the game's over at 5 o'clock, I'm all full into as quickly as I can. And then you have to trust your assistants and know what's going on. In Cancun, the thing that really came out of it is, number one, it's a great place to play because everything's on site. So it's an all-inclusive place. The gymnasium, the arena, the place where we played is inside a ballroom. So if you can imagine the last time you were at a wedding or something or even the ballroom across the street, they turned it into a basketball court. And if you didn't know any better, it's 94 by 50 and the goals are 10 foot high and the ceiling's high enough to throw a long court pass. But my point is, it's a really, really neat thing. So you never have to leave. The one thing we do, and this is our third time we've been there, like I said earlier, we actually give the guys an extra day on the back end. No other team does that. So we understand that it's a business trip. And we understand the staying out of the sun, staying out of the pools. All those things are enticing to you. We're here for a purpose. And the purpose is to win that championship. And we got to the championship, beat a very, very good Southern Miss team. They came in hotter than hot, and they're really, really talented. They're going to win a lot of games in Conference USA. And we played against a team that some people picked to win the OVC, Jacksonville State, who's very, very good as well. 6 seniors. And down the stretch, those seniors really came through for them. And we talked about that after the game. And we talked about that as we move forward. So then the next opportunity you get was FAMU at home on Thursday night. And I thought our guys really came out locked and loaded. I thought they really understood personnel, thought they really understood scheme, and I thought they really, really performed at a high level. I think it got to 34 at one point. And this is a team, which people don't know, that travels a lot like us, plays a lot of road games like us, had just gotten back from Loyola Marymount, who's one of only several teams that are still undefeated in America, and had a one-possession game where they actually missed 2 shots to take the lead at Loyola Marymount late in the game. So you're talking about a team that's got a chance in the MEAC to have a very, very, very good season, and couldn't be more proud of our guys to fight through that and to get through that. You know, you talk earlier about, what does it mean and what do you do? Thursday night you play. The game was late because it was an 8 o'clock tip. Women go into overtime, so now it's an 8:30 tip. So you're talking about 11:15. You're coming out of that, right? Next morning we got practice at 10. We're getting on the bus. One guy's got a final at 9 that morning. We're getting on the bus. That night at the hotel, my wife works in the study hall area. She made the trip to try to help 2 or 3 different guys be organized that night. Yvonne Gandea Rosa was taking a final until almost 12:30 in the morning, Saturday morning, for a game that we tip off with 5:30 in the afternoon. That's the life of being a student athlete. It's not as easy as people think. And so but that's life. So you got to do those things. And then to come out against a team, Charleston Southern, very good. Played Marquette strong on the road at Marquette. Played Florida strong for a half, similar to us. 4-2. I think they hadn't lost at home yet. Press, 40 minutes of being what we call, they just like to muck it up and just make it all mucked up and muddy and gooey and yucky and yuck. And they really don't have a rhyme or reason except with their rhyme or reason, and to get you to play fast and get you to do this and do that. And it caused 25 turnovers by us. And so many of them were self-inflicted. So many of them were self-inflicted. But you look at it and you're up 5 at halftime. They got 16 points off our turnovers at halftime. So how do you fix that? How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that? And the answer is defense. When you defend and rebound, which has been our biggest thing from last year to this year, when you defend and rebound, it doesn't matter to a point. It doesn't matter sometimes when things aren't 57% from the free throw line. That's not us. We're way better than 57%. But when you have those scenarios or those situations, so you're up 5, and you're like, man, they got 16 points. Yeah. Here's what we got to do. Here's what's nuts. We hold them to only 4 points off our turnovers in the second half, which is pretty impressive. We score 19 points off their turnovers in the second half, which is, for us, we really didn't do that a lot last year. But it shows where we're at. We had our best defensive efficiency rating of the year on the road at their place against a team that's been scoring the ball really, really, really well. And we out-rebounded them by 12. So when you put all that stuff in, yeah, you might have a bad night this, you might have a bad night that, but there's an old saying that one thing that always travels is defense. So we got to make sure that we understand that and continue to grow with that. And that's what's critical for this finals week. We have to understand that as we go through this week. We can't just take off.